G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. As you can see, I've changed location. Yes, I have finally got my computer fixed. So I should be able to do coffee and gaming live stream. I'm going to test that later. First, of course, I also have my tabletop news. That's tabletop news is over on Future Fantasy Empire. And yeah, after that, I might test live streaming. So, yes, I missed my old computer. It took me a while to save up to get it fixed. Now, as the war continues, I'll continue to bring you news uninterrupted by the noise of the lamestream media out there, the lying legacy losers, the corrupt, crusty crowns, who will tell you that Donald Trump is, I don't know, betraying, failing, you name it. So Putin puppet, I tell you, Putin puppet, and the little and all the Ukrainian NPCs out there, they're so propagandized that the truth about the war hurts their little brains. What's left of them. Now, this has been the worst year for Russia, no doubt. Everybody knows it. The worst year in progress. Yep, absolutely. Worst year for casualties? Absolutely. But it's also been Ukraine's worst year. A bad year for Russia is a worse year for Ukraine. Everybody knows that. But the Ukrainian glazers, the people who have their nose firmly wedged between Zelensky's cheeks, cannot accept that. And it's because they don't love Ukraine. They don't support Ukraine. That is the grand deception of the left, that they care about a cause. No, they care about power, and that's it. What they see Ukraine as an opportunity to sweep out all the successful Russians and hurt the right wingers. Because, yeah. And it is true, right? A lot of businesses across Europe want Eastern European labour. They're less likely to blow up. They're less likely to take days off to protest a football match. And if one of their own get killed, they're knocking on the door saying, I heard there's a job opening. So, while Italy decides what to do with the Moroccans, please deport them. They are putting the Ukrainians to work. You look at Poland. You look at... they've put the most of them to work. And they are... Now, the rest of Eastern Europe does not like Ukraine. That is a fact. But they like Ukrainian labour. That is also a fact. Now, the biggest hire of Ukrainians used to be Russia and Belarus, because the other countries didn't like them. But for now, it's actually starting to warm up. For the last 4 years, it's been a very tense relationship. But more and more Ukrainians are going to work, regular jobs, and they're keeping their nose clean, and they're actually warming up to the idea that they're not going home. So they are being more polite, paying their bills. They show up on time. So it's amazing when the motivation, and it's like Ayn Rand was right about human motivation, eh? Perhaps just a wee bit? No? You think so? Let me know in the comments. But we definitely see that human motivation, and we can see, right, that this is, Ukraine is motivated by its desire for glory, and Russia is desired to show that it is not a pushover, that it can't be bullied into submission. And so and for years they stayed out of this war as told. But the US and Europe said, no, don't get involved, we'll solve this. And after 10 years of, almost 10 years of, we could solve this, right, with the Ukrainians pressing hard on the Russian-backed separatists. Now, isn't it amazing? Every other separatist in the last 100 years has all but a few been backed by the West. How many have the US backed? 70, 80 out of 72 out of 90, I believe. That's a lot, considering the likelihood of the statistical outcome has also favoured the US. Now, Europe has, in several occasions, rushed into, in the last 10 to 20 years, rushed into everything to prove themselves a useful ally. Then suddenly, right, now I think this might actually be pride, but they thought the Iran conflict would be over sooner than had they got, meaning if they got involved, the war would have been prolonged in order to bog them down. So they didn't get involved because, rightfully so, they saw this as a proxy war to bog them down. Right? They know China's behind Iran. They know China initiated the Ukrainian conflict, right? But the mastermind of this Ukrainian war is Victoria Nuland and George Soros. So the West wants to protect their boy, their asset, the bagman for the mafia, right? The financial mafia, the banking cartels. Okay? You know his name because he's the lightning rod, while the rest operate in the dark, like Klaus Schwab and others from the WEF, which includes Charles Windsor. Yeah, he's a WEF. Britain, wake up. He's the enemy, along with your boy Starmer and Little Starmer. They're going to be no different. They're all, in the last 10 years, all your PMs are WEF picked, left or right, the uni party. Now, as we look around the map, we have strikes on Sumy, strikes on Odessa, shelling and artillery at Kherson. Now, most of this front has gone quiet as well. The Russians have dug in. The Ukrainians have stopped trying to cross the river for some time now. But there were pot shots across the river occasionally. Today, there was no training in pot shots across the river, which is unusual. Missile attack on Belgrade. Oh, Dnipro is probably a sore. Dnipro is probably glad to have the day off. Glide bomb attack on Savansk. Now, there were allegedly other attacks, but as you can see, the attacks today on central Ukraine have not been reported. Now, this could be time of their attacks being more recent, but they report Ukrainian attacks on Russia with frequency. As you can see, they are not unbiased. Live map is definitely pro-Ukrainian. Again, they've attacked another wild berries warehouse, as you can see there. Drones at St. Petersburg. Again, wild berries logistics center. Why is that? Well, I believe this is Zelensky trying to get revenge for all the attacks on properties linked to him, because the Russian government has personally sanctioned him and his businesses and gone around exposing Zelensky around the world, costing him a lot of money. With the Swiss seizing those mansions. But we don't know the outcome of those cases, and we don't know, probably never will, who will really be behind. Just got to remember, they're not blowing up wildberries because they're a threat to Amazon. No. It's a threat to Ukraine's future as a logistics hub for Europe. Even though it's in a... Look at its location. You really want to sail all the way up here? Ignore Greece, Turkey, Italy. No, don't go all the way to Paris or Naples. No. Sail all the way up through here. Flow through the narrow straits, which only lets 14 ships a day through. And they've got to be medium to small, so... Yeah, and then dock here. No. It's ridiculous. Don't forget, 14 in. It's not 14 in, 14 out. It's 14 each way. No, this is just it's all part of the grand rail plan that, believe it or not, was cooked up by Kaiser Wilhelm. But it's to bypass the originally, see, the grand plan was pipeline and rail all the way up through into Central Europe. The British destroyed that, but, well, if Iran wasn't such a bitch, there could be a pipeline. It's a Russian pipeline. Yeah, it's a... Geopolitics is macroeconomic policy, I should say. And the reason why Russia hit Sumy and not other areas is partially economics. This is a war of attrition. And new combat reported on the buffer zone here in Sumy just right now. And as we go around the map, there's a lot of combat reported in the buffer zone here. It's only growing a fraction. The buffer zone here and here, Kupiansk. But again, nothing has come of these battles. This has been quite activity in an area that's been quiet for a long time. But most of the action was around Lyman and Savansk, with the Russians pushing in multiple directions and taking more land. Cleaning up operations in Kostakovia continue. Pushes occur elsewhere without any success. And as we go around the map, there is not much else to report. Though there was an attack on Sevastopol. I think that's actually yesterday. Just checking, yeah. Oh no, 9 hours ago there was another attack, which you could see there. Quite happy to admit they attack. Yeah, we attack civilians, but don't. Yeah, and the left says, "Look, Trump threatens to blow up a bridge. What did the left do? That's a civilian infrastructure. That's a worker." When Zelensky does it, he's ending the war by ending Russia's war machine. No cash for war. Woo! So, they are nothing but NPCs. They are irrelevant. Now, yes, you may say I'm isolating half my audience. No, 1/3 of my audience, who would anyway clutch their pearls and call me a misogynist or many other things. The left hate me. I have the wrong colour skin. Even though the majority of the left are just privileged white kids making noise because noise gets them attention, and hating on people who's just getting the crowd on their side so they can whip up a frenzy of a vote, thinking they're going to be popular. The brown people are going to carry me to the throne of the empire, says the coal miner's son from Birmingham. And reality is, they're going to dump you. You're not a coal miner's son, you're a lawyer from the WEF. We all know how much Labour lies. But here we have the Empire of Elves official art book, Volume 1, The Impressora. So bring the empire to life, yes, to fund artwork and more artwork. The left, of course, who claim to be all about supporting the arts, don't support the independent artists. They support political radicals who bring about communism. I like money. I want to keep what I earn. The left, they keep promising you'll keep what you earn. No, destroy the capitalist. He's a thief, I tell you. But then, who's the bigger thief? The state, who takes trillions of dollars and spends it on and subsidized movies that don't make money, or give $1 billion to J.K. Rowling and then tell everybody else that they're not even worth 300,000, or 30,000, or not even that. Some writers out there in Hollywood only get 3,000. And that's considered a success. So, there's the left don't believe in equity or in equality. Those are just buzzwords to them. But me, the bee, could tell you all about the honey and you'll agree. Honey is good for you. Honey tastes good. But see, the left, They are the fly. The fly only cares about laying its eggs and warming its feet on shit. Yes, and they do eat it. So there's no explaining to the pro-Ukrainian crowd that they're not pro-Ukrainian. They are pro-war. And that they don't want to admit to themselves that all they really care about is their racism, their hatred of Russians, because Russia is doing better than them. So must tear them down. See, there are about 3-4 layers to the psyche. You have the obvious layer, the one that's talking to you right now in your head. Then under that is the one you occasionally talk to, which is, because you've got the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain. The one that's most active is the one talking to you. And the more quieter voice that sometimes counters your own thinking. That's the other side of your brain. Whether it's if you have an emotional response, and your logical response, your left brain, right brain. Then, of course, under that is a lot of your automations, the visceral reactions that you instantly have without thinking, like, oh my God, see, he's such a he smells. The turning up of the nose without even thinking about it. Everybody does it, by the way. Everyone's a potential snob. It's just how ingrained it is. Nobody likes the smell of hard work, especially the air conditioned crowd who tell you to turn yours off. No, I need my air conditioner. I'm old. I get to see. So they sit in their air conditioned, but they don't it's not my air conditioner. It's not a personal air conditioner. It's a climate controlled environment. And of course, you have the office workers. The list of hypocrisy goes on. And I'm getting distracted again. All right, focus. The pro-Ukrainian mob does not understand the war is detrimental to Ukraine. And fighting it is a way of the elites of Ukraine grinding away the excess workers so they can take over large amounts of land and create their huge farming conglomerates so they can make millions of dollars so they can make tens of millions of dollars a year off the wheat instead of millions of dollars being the middleman. No, they can be the owner of large farm conglomerates, just like Bill Gates. And so what they do is they find young, rabid nationalists who are willing to kill for profit. I mean, glory. The profit goes to the Klominsky and the Zelensky. Well, the rest of you peasants get to watch your farm village get bulldozed and turned into a conglomerate, and you go from farm owners to employees of the state. Now, they're just glazing him that he's a maverick. He's a hero. He's a 4-star general. He's outmaneuvered and defeated much larger forces in Kharkiv. And if he's successful, right? Actually, 4 years ago, there were only 90,000 Russians on the battlefield against 380,000 Ukrainians. Somehow he's the hero. See, see how they got a can you tell their motive? Can you tell they're always out to, wrap themselves in glory? But there are contradictions. And look, they're finally admitting it, that they're operating a Soviet-era army, that they've given up a lot of their NATO training, where the armed forces is a tool of the Ministry of Defense, which is why Zelensky moved Fedorov, and then they had to remove their own boy because the people didn't like him, so they appeased the mob. Fedorov is going to get a job, so the protests for now seem to have gone away, and Kiev has been, trying, Again, the cause of pioneering achievements in drone and robotic warfare. No, they're a testing ground for the British, and the British Labour want to, for whatever reason, decided, no, they're going to shove all the glory in Ukraine's face. This is ball tickling. Ball tickling the Ukrainians so that they will think they're important and think that they can charge the enemy. We'll just take a little red bird and charge the enemy, and we can run all day. Yeah, offered. Hey, he has declined to be a job of presidential advisor in the technical reform of the military. He has something more important in mind where he can be more effective. Yeah, behind the scenes. Yeah, he's going to organise opposition to Zelensky. You watch. Will Drapetai change the war? Yeah, but will it be for the worse? Or will it be, will he try to be another Fedorov? Now, the Fedorov problem remains. See? But Fedorov has been a good Ukrainian, so we'll see. But Mikhailo here is most obviously wanting to kill Fedorov because promotion requires sacrifice. Never tell simpletons complex issues. They break it down into simple steps. Someone in front of me. Stab. No longer in front of me. I can now step forward. Ha ha! Winning! Yeah. So now, like I said, every time it's a bad day for Russia, it's a worse day for Ukraine. Now, several were killed in Ukraine as they trade blows. Long-range strikes, as you can see, as shown. Attack in Sumy. Again, it is a fuel depot. Always claiming only civilians were attacked and only civilians killed. And it's always a child. There's always a child. Every attack. There's always a child in every attack. See, central Ukraine was struck, claiming it was a food business. Yeah, I suppose a warehouse for the Ukrainian army. You want to starve out Crimea? Okay, we'll starve out your army and blow up the army's food depot. Enjoy those MREs. They're probably going to... Now, Moscow claims progress on the front line. No, Ukraine has admitted progress on the front line. So, according to many commentators, just as Ukraine was on the verge of victory, they behead the military. Now, this is a very political a very bold political move. Obviously, Zelensky's strategy is to say, all the failure to date is Fedorov, and, oh, wait, people are going to blame the general too. So we'll say Fedorov, so he appoints a rabid nationalist who's going to say, oh, my hands were tied in the past, but I'm still the hero who could drive a armored car to rescue Russians, and get my ass beat by Russians and traded in a prisoner exchange. Yeah, it was, by the way. Yeah, he actually was defeated in several times, actually, when he tried to take on a bunch of civilians with iron bars during the 2014 uprising. He was actually defeated and captured and held hostage. He was part of the team that went to save hostages, and yeah, he's such a hero. So Ukraine's top military personnel are going to all shift the blame. There you go. See, 81 square kilometres according to the Institute of War. June was 30. Before that, they've had, yeah, it's been the worst month of the worst year. But July, again, yeah, so they gained more territory, said Ukraine gained more territory, which they didn't. Strike logistics, yeah. Using balloons launched from ships off the coast of Russia. Yeah, they're not going to, long-range strikes allegedly destroyed aircraft. But at the cost of millions of dollars in these huge operations, they've destroyed 2 aircraft. And sooner or later, those ships they're using to launch those balloons from, Russia's going to hit those centers, and you'll never hear about it because Ukraine will never admit to their illegally using civilian ships to launch military attacks on Russia. Because there's going to be no war crime tribunal. Russia's not going to storm Kiev, put Zelensky on trial, because he knows the world won't believe it anyway. The shit-eating flies will always believe Putin bad, Zelensky good. They never can actually fathom that their own side is the problem and that they're supporting evil. No, because they're so enamored with the idea that they're going to get free healthcare so they can keep shooting up drugs and don't have to worry about paying for their healthcare. So they can feel comfortable in their old age. They can do anything. Because no matter what degenerate disease they have, I'm spreading STDs. And instead of dying, no, they're going to save my life. And trust me, humans seem very attached to their lives and very grateful sometimes when you promise to save them. So they, of course, call you materialistic and greedy because they're the ones who want your resources and you just won't hand it over. Why aren't you more like the camel? Lose all that excess gold and pass through the eye of the needle. There's honey-soaked milk. They want to be soaked in milk and honey, but really they're barefoot in shit. Greed, envy, you name it all. You name a sin, and that's what the left is, right? Take out all the virtue, and you have the left. Now the Russian troops have taken Belitskoye in the last 24 hours, reporting Ukraine has lost 1,400 in battles along the whole front line. They give a breakdown of the battle, inflicted losses, mechanized brigades, artillery guns, counter battery radar station. All that's expensive. 11 motor vehicles, yep. See, they hit logistics Russia's hit logistics too, motor vehicles. They don't report whether they're trucks. Most of them are just pickup trucks. But this is, now we get to why they spell it the Russian way here. Nikolai is appointed. He's a rabid dog who hates Russians. What a shock. What a shock that Zelensky would select a Ukrainian nationalist who's even more as a rabid dog who, 2014, and then Donetsk and Lugansk. Yeah. He was part of the militias, slaughtering civilians. What a hero! What a hero of the people! Now, this is probably the wrong photo, but, they probably couldn't find anything. Because what are they going to do? Keep showing the same photo? Yeah, they're going to change the photo now and again, but that's actually, more appropriate missile launches. They carried out missile launches against logistics centres again today. Again, the port of Odessa. This time they targeted a lubrication storage. All the permits are going, no, there goes the weekend Jello contest. For those who don't know, Ukrainian OnlyFans, the majority of OnlyFans women allegedly are Ukrainian women, and that Andrew Tate allegedly is involved in the transportation of these women, as well as UK, Sweden, and Romania, to, on camera. Now, a lot of your top female influencers are also on OnlyFans. Surprise! Said no one. I'm shocked. Oh, my shock face is in the mail. All right. Now, the image is actually a Russian soldier sending a Tachyon reconnaissance drone. They're being replaced by lightnings. You've got to update your photographs there. But, these are the bat wings. There's the new... See, over the years, you got different variations and models. Some of the shark teeth on them, yeah. But they're a surveillance drone, not a strike drone. And of course, don't forget the majority of drones are used still for surveillance. But in this poorly worded article, what the Russians are trying to say is Russia gives Ukraine a list of soldiers, and Ukrainian scratches out the list and only takes a handful back each time. Now, Russia's not sure why and how they are selecting these soldiers to come back. See, because you can think of this two ways. One, the most disruptive are left in Russia, or the least loyal comrades are left in Russia's hands. Could be a mix of both, and in that mix of both is the third option, the spy, who's there to learn about Russian behaviors, Russian attitudes, movements, weaknesses. Just remember, guards gossip, loose lips sink ships, remember? Someone's been watching too much Hogan's Heroes, and they do put spies in prison camps. Trust me, when it comes to spying, the military puts them everywhere. Military intelligence. Or as the Grunt says, the oxymoron. What is it? Murphy's Law of Military Intelligence? Isn't? All right, so state of the war. We just got another fresh update. What happened here? St. Petersburg. Nope. All right. There we go. We get a flood of tax linemen. All right. So we're getting a flood of attacks. All right. So now we keep hearing, of course, from both sides, and this is true. We're advancing on all fronts is the standard narrative, but it's a backwards and forwards. It's a push, but yeah, and assaults, as anyone in the military will tell you, require larger forces than what the Ukrainians are facing. The Russians are actually seemingly deliberately trying to win this using the so-called strategy of proportionate response. And whether or not you think it's working or not in Ukraine, this is the strategy that Putin used in his Chechen campaign. But there are other aspects of the Chechen campaign that are going on behind the scenes. And I think this is why generals are being removed. So they're not too comfortable in their job, so that if they're bored off or subversive, they can't do a lot of damage because they're not there for long. And they get rotated. Okay, a lot of these generals, when they're removed, they're put into other areas of general staff. They're moved around. This is the Ukraine is using the keep it fresh, keep everybody on their toes, keep everybody trying to brown up the boss, tickle everyone's balls to get ahead, and the fear of using fear as a performance motivator is very, very bad in long-term strategies. You don't have to take my word for it. That actually demotivates people, pushes your mind, hurts your body over time. You can use fear and pain to your own advantage as a powerful motivator, but over time, okay, it's a survival tool. So you're putting people's survival at risk mentally. It takes a physical toll on the person. As you can see with aging of US presidents, they get to that midpoint and they start aging. That's why a lot of them, yeah, you don't recognize them if you see them over time change, but if you see them, if you go back and just see when Bush came in, see how gaunt he was when he left office, he looked like he aged 20 years. But using fear as a motivator in Ukraine will eventually turn against you. It always does. They use fear of poverty and the promise of prestige to change Ukraine's allegiances. That kind of survive at any cost attitude is so liberal, it's not funny. This dog-eat-dog world the liberals are creating, where there's no morals, no standards, and they just laugh at you. They're sociopaths. They are educated and indoctrinated, I should say, into becoming sociopaths who'll do anything for money. and that the rules-based order they keep talking about is just a pretense. Yes, it's also a fear as a motivator. Don't get caught. Everything's legal as long as you don't get caught. And so they love this competition. And however, the ordinary people of the world, the majority of which are very, very, they want to see these people go to jail. And sooner or later, the dismay that Gen X, Gen Y, millennials all had over wanting to see these boomers and their brats, go to jail for war crimes. Well, it ain't going to happen because it's every country. Every country's the same. Well, as soon as one country gets away with the prosecution of Germany was merely in World War II was merely to blow the valve of pressure. But now we have, and again, the Ukraine war is about blowing the valve of pressure, getting people's anger directed at Russia instead of at, say, the central bank or the Fed for not printing enough money, or the stimulus going to companies that immediately turn around and lose it all on multi-billion-dollar vanity projects. Like the Obama Library, and then you wonder what, and then quietly they're trying to find a way to bail out the Obama Library, who spent $500 million and is in debt and hasn't paid its workers in 2 years. Meanwhile, the Obamas have multiple properties in Hawaii, huge mansion on Martha Vineyard, Netflix deals and Grammy Awards for God knows what, because they just walked on stage and received one. This is the obvious corruption that they're trying to distract you from. Now, I'm not saying they aren't corrupt Republicans. It's more, however, is the Republicans are old school, Yes, you're a donor to the party, so we'll put you on the preferred list, of favourable traders, You might get a government contract or two now. It's very small time. It's nothing big like the $30 billion spent on homelessness in California or the high-speed rail. No, they're all trying to use the Ukraine war to virtue signal so that their public attention is off them. That's why so many people are always looking for external validation with causes which on the surface may seem great. We're sending aid to Pakistan, help the poor. But then you find out it's all about some trans, and it's like to get them trans surgery in it. Which is money not going to Pakistan, but a bunch of Pakistani perverts, and the money doesn't actually even go to them because there's some surgeries in some surgeon somewhere in a US clinic, and they're only and then they're sent to Pakistan where they're sent to prison for being gay and then sexually abused. And then you never hear of them again. Why? Because they tend to not survive the abuse. So the left, you have to always dig because they always give things such nice Orwellian names. They never give you the details like open society. Yeah, open borders. Freedom of movement sounds great until you realise that means your enemies are free to march across the border and take over. While you work and try to figure out how to pay for your kids' schooling, some border jumper gets multiple schooling for free for their kids, multiple uniforms and charities, and we're helping the poor, and the poor outnumber you and take over. And then the virtue signalers go, yay, we destroyed capitalism. Wait, you told us you weren't commies. Ha ha, we fooled you. It's your fault for not stopping us. That's psychopathy. Social manipulation is at the heart of sociopaths, where psychopaths, it's more about the violence and the enjoyment of violence, whereas the sociopath is more about the enjoyment of deceiving others, social manipulation of others. And we haven't reconciled that, because if we were able to reconcile those issues and go, right, sociopath bad, psychopath worse, and isolate them and put them in positions where they cannot harm society, yeah, no, this survive at any cost battlefield mentality of the left is born out of World War I and II, and that's why it's dying with the boomers. Although it somehow did, with the kids growing up with all the war movies, seeking glory, and the millennials, as you know, they're going back to the millennials as split. The earlier millennials, Gen Y, as they used to call them, are wealthier than Gen X. Why? Because because boomers didn't give wealth to their kids, they gave it to their grandkids. You got a job, son. I'm just helping out your kids. And so you watch your kids get richer than you, because the boomers are handing it all their wealth to them. Millennials are going to be richer than boomers. Gen Y are going to be richer than boomers, while the millennials, the younger millennials, are going to be the poorest. Now, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that's yet to be determined where they're going to be, but they're looking at their lifespans actually going to be less than us Gen Xers. And so that's a dismay. And that's why they're just feeling betrayed from day one, because all they're hearing is doom and gloom, and how the boomers have eaten all the healthcare, eaten all the wealth with their healthcare, and because they didn't take care of themselves and now need a cocktail of drugs just to take a poop. And they're inheriting a $26 trillion debt, and the millennials got to live like kings. And they're not, and they get to that's why you see this envy going on right now about taxing the wealth, because they're saying, we're going to take, you got wealthy, so we're going to take all that wealth that you took to tax. Yeah, unfortunately, that does not solve the issue. Only delays the inevitable collapse, which the left want. That's why nothing gets fixed. And you go, well, the right wing. Well, the right is not in charge long enough and often enough to affect change. You may think, oh no. Well, you look at it, right? You look at it. Whenever the US economy soars, there's just enough right-wing influence. You point to Bill Clinton, yes, but it was Newt Gingrich's budget. And, you go, what about Obama? The financial, huge financial collapse. You don't get the dip between the two rise and falls. So you get this straight line, and only people who live through the financial collapse knows there were periods, huge periods of economic decline, but because long term, the global financial crisis, which was Goldman Brothers and all these. And again, they don't tell you the truth about those collapses. Now, these are insignificant compared to the economic damage wrought on the US by COVID and other disasters. Natural disasters are costing the US billions of dollars. And the promise of climate change to reduce hurricanes had so many enamored. But you go back, the 1930s were the biggest hurricanes of all time. One volcano sets you back 10 years on so-called carbon savings. Now, the US, if you look at the carbon charts, now I'm going way off here, I know. And most people are going to be tuned out. But before I go, okay, just look at the carbon charts and you'll see how deceptive. And you'll know, right, that who's behind everything, because you see the biggest polluter, China, followed by India, followed by Africa. And yet you have little Greta Doom Goblin spewing hatred at the West, telling us to cut our lifestyles. While she travels first class, of course, in her luxury yacht. How many of you can afford a $2 million yacht and sail it around as you please? And a flotilla of them. Yeah. They're all rich larpers, exactly. And they're all pro-war in Ukraine. And yet they all call the destruction of Palestine a war crime. Yeah. Now, Palestine's a cause created by Russia to attack the West. So I can understand now, in hindsight, all the events, if you add up, leading to 96, and you go, yeah, Russia wanted friendly relationships with the West, but they never made any real fundamental changes. And again, I think this is something that Marco Rubio was hinting to. Until there are fundamental changes and the conditions are right, there's not going to be an end to this war. And I think so. And that fundamental change, I think, has already been put to Putin. I think Putin understands. I don't know if or where. And there's always the possibility that Zelensky's made changes to the military. And we'll see. We'll see over the next 3 months. It takes time for these changes to really filter down. So we'll see what happens. We'll see whether or not Zelensky's doubling down, like he's told the media, or that's just what he's saying to stay alive because he knows the rabid dogs in Ukraine would tear him apart if they could ever get to him, because don't forget he's protected by the British SAS and spends most of his time in bunkers, being moved around from safe house to safe house. Not because he's afraid of the Russians, but he's afraid of his own people, the fanatical lunatics. But Kolominsky, yeah, he's another one who's always on the move because he's also a dead man walking. This is why these evil, greedy people, they give everyone else a bad name, It's about time. It's not about rich versus poor. It's about good versus bad. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video. Don't forget my Kickstarter. And I forgot, yes, Empire of Elves. .myshopify.com, your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. See you in the next video. Bye for now.